Welcome back to another Ret Paladin video. Verabin here. Today we are going to be doing some testing on the recent nerfs that Ret received to Final Reckoning and to the Kyrian Divine Call. So those were obviously some pretty significant changes, and the community was pretty concerned about, just how much that was going to affect Ret, and were we still going to be viable in Arena and etc. after that. So I did some testing in both skirmishes and rated Arena just to see if there was, if this was going to be a really big problem or not. So I am going to be showing some footage of that and then talking through some of those challenges that we're now facing in the PvP arena. I think all in all, the changes were probably needed long term, but I think short term it's going to be a little bit painful for us. And there are still some classes out that are pumping a lot of damage, especially rogues. But I do think that we're going to see continuing tuning on different classes and things like that. So stick around and we're going to do some testing and take a look. Before we get started with the video, please be sure to hash that like button and subscribe for more Ret Paladin content. We're going to be doing content 2 or 3 times a week in Shadowlands, so you don't want to miss a thing. Also, check out the description in the video for links to Patreon and different merchandises that are available. There's a lot of different ways you can support the channel, including Amazon affiliates. And the way that works is you click below, and even if you don't buy the items that are linked, anything that you buy in there, proceeds of that will go to supporting the channel. So if you're enjoying the content, please consider supporting it in one of those ways. All right, so the first thing I tested was just tossing out Final Reckoning altogether and using a different talent. So the first one that came to mind was Sanctified Wrath. And Sanctified Wrath is a talent I recently did a video on for Mythic Plus because it's such a strong talent and for Mythic Plus. And I was like, well, okay, so if it's doing a lot of DPS there, maybe it'll pump in PvP as well. And I think that it's actually really good. And one of the cool things about it is that it kind of doubles down on our 2-minute burst. So we're kind of trading a 1-minute burst for a much stronger 2-minute burst. Now, I think at high-rated Arena, it's likely that this is going to get outplayed, and people are going to just burn their defensives because everybody's defensives are shorter cooldown than 2 minutes. So I think that it's has some possibility there, especially in lower-rated Arena, to just kind of pump and get through someone really quickly. But I think that kind of remains to be seen. I think that's definitely an interesting option. I do like that Final Reckoning gives you some more long range damage, but keep in mind Sanctified Wrath not only does the AoE pulse damage, which is going to be really, really strong in melee cleaves. So if you're going to play with a warrior or with a Death Knight, something like that, then in 3v3, then that's going to be an interesting option for you because it's going to kind of pump damage and do a lot of kind of AoE damage, and that'll complement the Unholy Death Knight's dots. So you'll just kind of be rotting everything down, and I think that'll be an interesting option. And that also kind of potentially brings in another legendary, which is Tempest of the Lightbringer, and will kind of make Paladin more of a cleave, and it'll just help the cleave damage quite a bit. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to look at was our burst, and are we able to actually get kills given the Divine Toll nerf plus the Final Reckoning? Because those things don't necessarily interact with one another, but they do kind of show a pretty big change in how much damage Ret can do. And as you can see from the footage that's going on here, we can definitely still pump damage. However, we're very much like a glass cannon still. So I think one of the biggest weaknesses of Ret that we've seen in the past is still prevalent today is that we're very, very susceptible to magic damage. And for physical damage, we can spec into eye for an eye, and we can kind of we can get a little bit of tools in our toolkit. I don't see a lot of people playing eye for an eye, but it's definitely something that's out there that I've used before. So I think that that's one that we can play against melee. However, against spellcasters like Shadow Priests and mages, maybe to a lesser degree, I think that we're going to struggle a little bit, and maybe that's okay. Maybe it's okay that we have these kind of counter comps in spellcasters, but I think that it's definitely a pretty strong weakness for us. I'm showing a clip here where I'm fighting against a Shadow Priest and Resto Shaman, and it gets pretty sketchy. Shadow Priests have a lot of really good tools in their toolkit, so I would be surprised if they didn't get tuned also a little bit, but they're definitely a strong class, and one we're going to have to look out for. But I think that as far as getting kills and stuff like that, I still see that we have kill potential, and we don't necessarily need Final Reckoning, and we don't necessarily need Divine Call. At the beginning of this clip, I I almost killed the Shadow Priest and then almost killed the rest of the Shaman, and I didn't use Divine Toll. I probably should have used Divine Toll there, but I didn't. So anyway, I think there's going to be definitely definitely plenty of damage there that will be able to take down people. Keep in mind, this is still early in the season, so people have a variety of different gears. In a couple months, everybody's going to kind of be on the same level gearing plane. So that's going to be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. So I've actually seen a fair number of people asking questions like, should you re-roll Ret? Should you go play a different class? Should you go play a warrior? Do we want to switch to Night Fae for our Covenant and stuff like that? So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit, about Covenant choice and class choice and kind of Ret's viability going forward. And I do think that there is a case to be made for Night Fae at this point, because there are some clips in there that you can see where I get away from the enemy, and it's hard to catch up to them. So I'm not sure that is really going to be the play. I don't like the idea of switching covenants, and I still think that that Divine Toll is going to be really, really strong for Kyrians. And I think that once we get deeper into the trees, I think that Clea has a soulbind at the very bottom of her tree that's attached to a potency conduit, and I think it's going to be really, really strong. And it basically just gives you a passive snare, and I think that's going to be really good. I think that's at renown like 22 or something. So it's gonna take a while to hit that. So it's a sort of a long-term play, and I don't think you want to switch covenants that often. I don't think you want to be switching covenants and then going to Night Fae and coming back to Kyrian. I think that is not the play. I think we're gonna struggle a little bit if that's what we try to do. You're gonna waste a lot of time and resources doing that. I think that Kyrian is still a really good covenant for us, so that is not one that I would switch for now. If you're still really interested in PvP and Mythic Plus like I am, I would definitely consider staying Kyrian, staying the course. It's still a really good ability. It's another ranged ability that's on a relatively short cooldown, and it's going to be pretty strong for your soulbinds, because you're still going to get Pelagos as a really good PvE soulbind and Clea for a good PvP soulbind. As far as switching from Ret to a different class, I think that there is still a lot of positives to staying Ret. I think that we are still going to have a lot of strengths and weaknesses. I think that we have kind of more strengths and more weaknesses than other classes do, and that puts us in kind of a unique position. I think our off healing is really, really strong. You can see in some of these clips I'm popping 10 or 15k Word of Glories, and keep in mind I have the conduit that's going to add a shield for that. It's not a huge amount. I think it's like, at the level that I have, I think it's like 16% shield. So not too bad. If I do a 10k Word of Glory, that's going to add another, basically 16.5k shield to that. So that's pretty cool. So I think that overall we're doing pretty well. And if I were a Ret Paladin right now, which I am, I would not be switching. I think that we just have to stay the course and continue to, to fight the good fight. So that is all for the video. I hope you guys like this kind of content. Please be sure to hash that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next one.